All is one reflections, all is one. All right. Me, wherever you're watching this from, okay. In today's class, we're going to be talking about today's class is titled Complete Beginner's Guide to Alchemy. Now, alchemy is not new to you if you have been doing rituals, doing spells, right? No matter where you are in your journey, whether you just started, you've done your first candle working, you've done your first prayers with psalms, right? Whether you're full blown, have been through a few initiations, you have practiced alchemy, right? And we're going to be able to go deeper into that for you to be able to see that. Now, before I get into today's class, I decided to do this class as a pre-recorded class because it's going to be a part of a series. Okay, I'm in the process of a transformation right now, an internal transformation around life in general and what I want life to look like, right? And what I want my medicine to look like in impacting the community. For a very long time, I did live classes. They were a whole experience, and sometimes the classes would be 2, 3, 4 hours long, and I get all animated and into it, and I get you guys to participate, and everybody chimes in, and it was just such an amazing experience. But as I evolved in my practice, as I evolved in my journey, I noticed that that season is coming to an end, right? My medicine is also transforming. The medicine that I had 5 years ago is not the medicine I have today, and it won't be the same medicine that I have 5 years from now, okay? And you want that. As I elevate, my medicine elevates. And so what I want to do going forward is I want to focus more on rituals, okay? And so if you're watching this, well, you're watching this pre-recorded, you're not watching it live, okay? Will I ever do live classes? Yes. When the time is right, I will do a live class, but it won't be as often as before. So what I want to do with these classes, I want them to be supplemental education for you throughout my different rituals, okay? So, when you guys are doing rituals with me, the first step is working with your ancestors. We have to set that foundation. Then we evolve into working with different entities. The main entities, energies that I work with in my personal practice are going to be the Orisha, the Loa from Haitian Vodou, and the archangels. Okay, I do work with saints here and there, but mainly with archangels. All right, so my rituals will incorporate these energies, and of course, ancestors and Ori. Of course, we can't forget that. Okay, um, and so throughout my rituals, I will have supplemental education. And also too, these series, these pre-recorded series will be my contribution to the community. You're watching this on the YouTube video, right? You probably found me on YouTube, or your little corner of the internet brought you here, okay? And they're meant to be insightful. They're meant to open your eyes to see things differently. And they're meant to be that anchor, because I remember when I was in your shoes, when I first started in my journey, or maybe you haven't even just started in your journey, you're expanding your journey. I always like to have some sort of book or resource of some sort, right? A book or an essay or a collection of things, or even a movie, sometimes a documentary, right? So I want this series, right? This class to be part of that resource, that extra resource in your library that expands your knowledge. Okay, but the real learning for going forward, if you're going to work with me, is going to be through the rituals. Through the rituals, you're going to learn everything you need to learn. You're going to have hands-on learning, okay? And you're also going to be transforming your life while you learn, right? I feel like that type of medicine is the most profound medicine I can give at this level in my journey. So I'm excited to have this as a resource for you. Save it in your library, save it somewhere safe, go back to it. Rewind it, pause, take notes, right? If you're a teacher or an elder in your own community, use this as a reference to teach your people. This is my gift to the world. It's free. I don't have a paywall behind this, and it's going to be a series. It's going to be a couple of videos. Okay, so stay tuned. If you are subscribed to my emails, move your emails from spam into your main box so that you can actually get my emails, right? If you're listening to this from my podcast, which I will be starting soon, okay, okay? Go ahead and subscribe. Make sure you have all the notifications so that you can, or even if you're watching this on YouTube, right? Go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you get the notification as I put these out, right? There will be a part 2, there will be a part 3, and everything, all the education that I will be giving will be short and sweet, but the main goal is for it to be a resource for you. The real learning happens in my rituals, okay? So now that I got that little tidbit out of the way, let's get into the class, all right? So today's class is part 1 of Complete Beginner's Guide to Alchemy. So I want to invite you. Now, normally if this was a live class, and I was going live, and I might do them live in the future. But yeah, I'm not gonna write that off, but it won't be. It's going to be a little different. Let's just say that, okay? So I'd like for you to take a moment and think about when you hear the word alchemy, what comes to mind, right? I would tell you to type it in the chat. What comes to mind? For me, when I first heard alchemy, I always pictured a chemistry lab of some sort. I took my first degree. Fun fact, by the way. Fun fact. This is how you know I've been a voodooiza before I even knew it. Okay, I've been practicing ATR before I even knew it. My first degree was in chemistry. Okay, I have an associate's degree in chemistry from Broward College. It used to be Broward Community College. I did the 2-year community college transfer to Maine University because it was free for me. Like the 2-year community college was free. And I was like, oh, this is free. Let me go get a degree. So I got my chemistry degree. So when I see alchemy, the word alchemy, the first thing that pops to mind is chemistry, right? I go right back to those lab with my little lab coat and then, the little beakers and all the different chemicals. That's where I go when I hear the word alchemy. But I'd like to invite you to think, when you see the word alchemy, what do you think of? Okay. Now, tonight's class, okay, as you talk, as you write down what comes up to mind. Today, we're going to talk about what is alchemy, of course. We're going to talk about why study alchemy, okay? Yes, why are we here? Why even have a class around alchemy, okay? We're going to talk about a brief history, the origin of alchemy, all right? Where did it come from? Then we're going to talk about the 4 elements. The 4 elements is an aspect of alchemy. We're also going to talk about other aspects of alchemy as well. And then we're going to talk about the three main phases of alchemy. Okay. Now I may stop right around here at 4 elements because the 3 phases of alchemy is actually can be a whole class in itself. But we'll see how I feel throughout this, because I want these to be short and sweet and palatable, right? And digestible. One critique that I have for myself is my past classes, they were very long, and I would be so excited to teach because I would have all this stuff in my head, right? And I would be so excited to share it with the world that I would just like throw so much at people, and people were not really retaining it, right? It was just like so much information all at once. It sometimes became overwhelming. And so what I want to do differently going forward with my medicine is to make it digestible, because once it's digestible, you now have the knowledge, you have the wisdom, and you have the understanding, right? Knowledge is nothing if you don't understand, which, you have the knowledge, but if you don't go out there and apply it and gain the wisdom to truly understand it, what are we really doing? Okay. It's not enough to have a page, book full of notes with no action behind it. And you will see that is an aspect of alchemy. Okay. So I may just introduce the 3 phases of alchemy, but in part 2, we're going to go a lot deeper into that. Okay. All right. So as you all know, I always have this slide, right? My presentation today is going to be both theoretical and practical. Okay. That never changes. That aspect of my medicine will never change. Okay. So let's talk about what is alchemy. All right. If this was a live class, I would ask you guys, what is alchemy? Well, alchemy, right? The very basic definition of alchemy is the art of transformation, right? Now let's take a look at the word alchemy. I actually have a slide on this, but Spirit is telling me to talk about it right now. Okay. When we look at the word alchemy, right? We look at chem, right? Comes from the word Kemet, ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, all right? And ancient Kem, sometimes it's spelled Khem, okay? And sometimes it's spelled K-E, uh, Kemet, right? Kemet or Kem, all right? Kem or Kemet means land of black soil, right? Or black land, okay? And if we go even deeper into the word, that just the concept of black land or black soil or land of the black, or there's the word black in there and the word land, okay? It also, we can go a little bit deeper and we can see that the word chem represents also regeneration. It represents fertility. It represents transformation. Okay. All right. So we have the word chem in there, right? So that pure consciousness, that you think of the earth, right? The fertile, all of that potentiality inside of the earth, right? All of the potentiality inside of the womb. When we're looking at darkness, right? When we look at the triple darkness in the womb, all of that potentiality inside of a seed, right? All of that is chem. Kemet, right? Is that chem part. And then we have al. Al can mean the, right? It has the origin of it has the Arabic origin, which means the, and it also goes back to the divine source of one. Okay. And so when we put together black land, right, which really means it's not just black land, which really means regeneration, transformation, fertility, infinite potentiality, and then we put the divine oneness into it. Now we understand alchemy on a whole different level, right? So alchemy is essentially the art of transformation, taking that first matter, taking something from pure potentiality, right? Pure potentiality, and molding it into something that you truly desire. Okay. Now I would say type in a one in the chat if that made sense. All right. But this is not a live class. All right. Alchemy is also associated with turning lead into gold, right? If we go into the history of alchemy, the origin of alchemy is not really known per se, but we know, right? If you know, you know. The origin of alchemy is source itself, right? It is that inner knowing. It's that divine knowledge that is embedded inside of our DNA, embedded inside of our energetic field, right? That's really the true origin. But history books, right, and the colonized knowledge will say that ancient Kemet, with ancient Egypt, is the origin of alchemy, and we're going to go into that into the next slide. But eventually, it traveled from ancient Egypt into Greece, into medieval Europe, and so on and so forth. By the time that it made it to medieval Europe, it became popularized, right? It became popular as this study or as this field of turning lead into gold, right? So many wealthy individuals would go and hire alchemists and sponsor them, and feed them and house them, all in the name of them taking lead and turning it into gold. Let's pause for a second. Let's talk about turning lead into gold. What could that possibly mean? Right? Pause this video if you need to. Take a moment. I invite you to take a moment and ask yourself, what could that possibly mean? What are we really saying? Yes, there is the actual literal turning lead into gold. We got that. But metaphorically speaking, what else could that mean? Could that mean turning lead meaning fears, your fears, into action? Could that mean transforming heartbreak into art? Think about some of the most well-known musicians, some of the most iconic musicians, right? Or artists in general. Usually they transmute, right? They transform their pain into some sort of beautiful art. That, ladies and gentlemen, is alchemy. All right. And so when we talk about turning lead into gold, it's not just the physical lead. Of course, that's part of the story, but we're going a little bit deeper than that, right? We are transforming things that we don't want to experience, or things that are painful, or things that we wish were different. We're transmuting it into something that we actually desire. Okay. I hope that makes sense. All right. I talked about the inner world. Okay. Yes, alchemy is one of the principles of alchemy is as above so below, right. So we know that as above so below, as what's another way to say it, like whatever happening inside is happening outside, and so on and so forth, that law of correspondence. And so alchemy is about transforming your inner world, right? We come into this world to have a beautiful human experience. We're excited, and then boom, foo, foo, all these things happen to us in childhood. We get our feelings hurt, we get betrayed, we get disappointed, we get all sorts of things, and then now that starts to create patterns that create things that we don't really want to see, we don't really want to experience. So alchemy takes those patterns and transforms those patterns. Make sense, everybody? Okay. Alchemy is the four elements. All right. You cannot have a conversation about alchemy. Most people don't really know the three essentials of alchemy, which we're going to talk about. Okay. Most people don't really know the three phases of alchemy, right? But everybody knows the four elements. Yes, I know that there are some what's the word I'm looking for, there are some spiritual systems that work with more than four elements, right? But no matter what spiritual system you're using, there is a basis of four elements. All right. And we're going to talk about that. So what is alchemy? Alchemy is the art of transformation. Okay. Now let's go into why study alchemy. All right. Now, if this was a live class, I would ask the audience, right? Tell me in the chat, why study alchemy? Alchemy gives us a framework for understanding transformation. Let's pause for a second, right? We always talk about transformation. Most of you are practicing Orisha Hoodoo, Haitian Vodou, Santeria, Lukumi, Ifa, right? Isheshe, all sorts of different systems. What is the anchor of all of those different systems? The anchor of all of those different systems is to transform your life, to transform your reality, whether you're transforming lead into gold, or whether you're amplifying what you already have and you want to experience more of it on a different level. The basis of our practice is transformation. Okay. And so why study alchemy? Well, we want to understand the process of transformation, right? I'd like for you to grab something near, okay? I'm going to actually, let me pause for a second. I'm going to grab something near. I have my book here, okay? The glare here. I have my book, Roots of Wealth, all right? This is, Lessons on Rediscovering Abundance. I wrote this book last year. All right. I need to sign my own book. This is my own copy of my own book. And think about this book here that I have. All right. Roots of Wealth. Think about everything that had to happen for it to become a book, right? Think about the origin, which we would call the first matter. The origin is the thought, right? Is the download like, hey, Kat, it's time to write a book, right? There was a thought. Now, what inspired that thought? We could even take it further and say, what inspired that thought, right? And this book is full of my personal stories, right? So the Roots of Wealth are personal short stories in my life, and I tie it to how these stories taught me a lesson about wealth. Okay, and then also there are inside of the book there are also journaling prompts that allow you to not only digest the story but also work through the lessons of the story for yourself, right? So I'm taking you on my experience and my own transformation, right? So all of these stories, one of the stories that I talk about is my dad, when we first came to the United States, how he wanted to eat rice and beans, right? I won't give it away because I want you to read it, okay? You can get this on Amazon. I'll have the link in the comments for you, okay? But one of the lessons, one of the stories, this glare here, It's like glaring on the book here, right? One of the stories in the book was about my father wanting to eat rice and beans, and I taught basically the lesson from that was how wealth, okay, somehow is always tied to money, but wealth is also tied to culture. Wealth is also tied to tradition, right? And so we're transforming the story of the rice and beans into a lesson about wealth. That is alchemy, all right? That is an example of alchemy. So I want you to take a second and just grab, I have something else here. I have a little bracelet here. And just think about how did this, think about the origin of this item. Think about all of the things that this had to go through, all right, in order to become this bracelet, whatever you have, right? I have my glass of coconut milk. I love drinking coconut milk and sparkling water. It's like a little drink, little non-alcoholic drink. Sometimes I can add cinnamon to it and nutmeg and make it a whole thing, right? But think about the origin. Think about how, you know, this started with coconut milk. It started from the coconut. Where did the coconut start? The coconut started from the coconut tree. Where did the coconut tree start? Right? Think about the entire process that this of transformation that this thing had to go through in order to make it to my glass, right? In order to become this bracelet, in order to become this best-selling book. Okay. All right. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is a representation of alchemy. Okay. So let's keep going. All right. So alchemy gives us a framework for understanding transformation, and we have understand. And when we have understanding, that's what I wanted to say. Okay, don't mind me with my typos. And when we have understanding, right, your perspective changes. Okay, think about when you understand something. Think about how you see things differently. You think differently. You even walk differently, right? And so when you think differently, right, you make decisions differently, and when you make decisions differently, your reality shifts. Okay, and so alchemy, understanding transformation, gives you I don't want to say a head start, but it gives you control, a little, yeah, it gives you a way to control and to understand how to design the reality that you want. It gives you a clear understanding. Oh, if I want to experience X, Y, and Z, I need to do A, B, C. It's not, you're not guessing, you're not like, you know, trying to put everything together and hopefully this works, right? No, it's a, hey, I'm going to do ABC and I'm going to get X, Y, and Z, because you have that understanding, you have that confidence, and you make those decisions, and you experience a different reality. Okay. All right, so I did want to pause for a little exercise, which I already gave you, but let's take it a step further. I want you to grab something, not necessarily that's, you know, like something random, okay, but grab something around your house. If you have to pause the video, go ahead and do so, okay. Go ahead and grab something from your house that your ancestors would enjoy. Okay. Whether it's a piece of fruit from the fridge, whether it's a glass of something, a glass of wine, if you want to do something that you know your ancestors would enjoy. Okay. So what I'll do is I'm actually, normally I would pause the recording to do this. But I noticed that whenever I watch these pre-recorded classes, and the time given to do the exercise is actually embedded, um, it actually makes me do the I'm trying to multitask, sorry. It actually makes me do the exercise, because sometimes when it's like, oh, go ahead and pause the recording, I don't pause it, I just keep going. So I'm gonna actually create that time for you. So I'm gonna give you about 3 minutes to go and grab, actually no, 1 minute. I'll give you 1 minute to go and grab something, okay? I'll put a little bit of music. Okay, now you should be back with your item. Okay, so now the first step is I want you to take a moment in your notes and I want you to observe the origin of that item. Okay, so for example, let's say I was giving my ancestors this glass of coconut milk, right? Again, like I talked about, what is the origin of the coconut milk? Think about the process of even getting coconut milk. How do you make coconut milk, right? Think about the grading of the coconut and the pressing of the coconut and putting the water, right? All the things that have to happen for you to get this coconut milk. Okay, so take a moment. I'll give everybody about maybe about a minute, 60 seconds, to kind of write down what is the origin of this coconut milk. Okay, all right, take a second. All right. Okay. All right. So now the next step is, did I pause? Okay, no, I didn't pause the recording. Good. Okay. So now the next step is I want you to hold this item, right? And I want you to program the item. What do I mean by program the item? Tell it what to do, right? Give it and set an intention on the item, right? What do you want this item to do? This coconut milk. What can coconut milk represent, right? It can represent fertility, life, rejuvenation. I know coconuts are associated with the fountain of youth, right? So bringing vitality. What vitality is usually associated to youth. Beauty is associated to youth. Multiplication is associated to youth, right? Think about the protective aspect of the coconut, right? Think about the nurturing aspect, right? So go ahead and program. Tell the coconut water or whatever you're holding, whatever your item is, tell it what you want it to do. Okay, set that intention. I'm going to give you about another minute to go ahead and do so. Right, we're back. If you need more time, just feel free to pause the video. Okay, all right. All right. So now, okay, now we're going to seal the work. Okay, now that you have programmed it, now you're going to give it a seal of protection. You're going to give it that it is done type of thing. All right, this is what it is. And it's not going to go back to just a regular old coconut milk anymore. This is no longer regular old coconut milk from the can or from whatever. It is now an offering for my ancestors that's going to fulfill all those intentions that you programmed it. Okay, so this could be an ashe. It could be and so it is, right? You're going to seal that work. Okay, Now, once you have sealed that work, okay, I want you to take a moment and journal this. What did I feel move through me as I charged this object? What did you feel while you were holding the object and as you were programming the object? What were some of the feelings that came up for you? I'm going to give you about a minute, about 60 seconds to go ahead and jot that down. All right, we are back. Again, if you need more time, just pause the video and then you can always continue. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, that little exercise was meant to illustrate the process of alchemy. So let's talk about it for a second, okay? So we started with the raw material. You picked up a not so random, you picked up an item, okay, that you knew your ancestors would like. It wasn't totally random, but you picked up an item before you programmed it, before you did anything to it, before you held it in your hand, set the intentions, it was just that item. Okay. So that is your lead, right? Remember, alchemy is turning lead into gold. That is your raw material. What we call in alchemy, we call that the first matter. Okay. Then we added our intention. We added the element of spirit into there, right? Because the item itself already has spirit. It already has an intention, okay? The coconut milk already has its own properties, but you are adding your ashe, right? You're adding your spirit, your intention, your divine creative energy into that object, okay? And so when we add the spirit aspect, now we begin the transformation, okay? So now the transformation. So now this coconut milk is no longer just coconut. The minute I added my intention, I spoke into that water, I spoke into it, it is no longer just regular coconut milk, right? And then when I put it on my ancestor altar, it is definitely no longer coconut milk. No one can consume that, or else you want to mess with my ancestors. You want, unless you want to feel their wrath. Okay, you don't want to be drinking. I don't want to be drinking that coconut milk anymore because it's no longer coconut milk, right? So that, ladies and gentlemen, is alchemy. So alchemy is nothing new. You have been doing this this entire time, but now you have the language to be able to describe what is happening, right? You have the structure, right, to be able to truly understand the process of what is happening. Okay. All right. And then of course the last part. Okay. So right now you have the raw material. This is the lead. You added your spirit to it, right? And that spirit is creating that transformation. Now, whatever you ask for with that coconut milk, let's say I wanted abundance of opportunities, I wanted new clients out of nowhere, I wanted new perspective, new breakthrough, new shift in, yeah, I said that already, new shift in perspective, bringing life to a certain situation, mending a relationship. Once that is manifested, once I actually experience that reality, that is now the gold, right? So we turn the lead into that manifestation, and that becomes the gold. Okay. All right. I would normally say type in a 7 in the chat if you understood that, but this is not a live class. All right. So I hope I trust that you understand it. If not, don't worry, we're going to continue, and it'll definitely get clearer and clearer. Okay. So I think, should I pause here? No, actually, no. Let's keep going. I want to go until the 4 elements. Okay. So now we're going to get into a brief history, because I don't want to make these too long, but the exercise kind of took up time. I don't think I've been talking that long. Okay. All right. So now let's go into a brief history of alchemy. Now I did talk about this a lot in the beginning, so it'd be a nice little review, right? So like I talked about in the beginning, the origins of alchemy is spirit, okay? Is that divine intelligence within us, is our ancestors who have been practicing even before the ancient Egyptians, even before ancient Kemet, because where did they get it from, right? Now, you will hear a lot if you go and study alchemy a little bit deeper. And, one of my favorite books on alchemy is, I don't have it with me here. I have a PDF version of it, the virtual version of it. I think it's called Idiot's Guide to Alchemy. There's The Alchemist, right? There's a lot of books out there on alchemy, and most of them will talk to you about the Egyptian god, which we know are really energies, right? The Egyptian energy, Thoth, Thoth, right here. Thoth, okay? Some say Thoth, Toth, Thoth, okay? He is the father of alchemy, right? This energy is the first energy to have recorded the secrets of transformation, okay? All right. And so most textbooks, most resources around alchemy will tell you that the origin is ancient Egypt. But where did ancient Egypt get it from, right? So the origin, I say, is our divine intelligence, right? Is spirit itself, okay? We talked about Al, meaning the divine source of one, okay? Al, in different languages, Al means different things in different languages. It could mean, in Arabic, it means the, okay? Or in other languages, ancient languages, it would mean the divine source of one. Then you have Kemet, which means black land, okay? Or black soil. You will see that as well. Black land, black soil, okay? That divine consciousness, right? That collective consciousness itself. You can go so deep with the word black land, can mean so much. Okay, if we really want to take it there, okay. And I talked about Thoth, and he also the ancient Egyptian god, okay, energy, okay, recorded the art of alchemy, right? The process of alchemy, the study of alchemy, in the emerald tablets, okay? The emerald tablets are actually available on the internet. You can Google emerald tablets and you will get a PDF of the emerald tablets. Have fun, okay? And you begin to see that all is one. It's not any different from all the things that we learn in Orisha Hoodoo. It's not any different from the things we learn in Ifa. It's not any different from the things that we learn in Vodou. It is simply a different language, right? It's a more, at the end of the day, let's be real for a second, right? When we look at Vodou, when we look at Ifa, there is no colonized, structured system, right? Like with Chinese medicine, for example, it's structured. You go to college and you study Chinese medicine, and then you get a certificate, and then you pass the boards, and then you become a doctor, and then you could practice medicine. Like, we don't have that systematized structure with Vodou or with Ifa. And I say, in my opinion, we don't need that, but we don't. But alchemy does. Alchemy has that standardized, that structure, the textbooks. Here's step one, step two, step three. So the reason why I'm even teaching this is because in my personal practice, I found that those standardized things, although they are, a majority of them are whitewashed, okay? A lot of books on alchemy are going to talk to you about alchemy from medieval Europe, okay? But take what is it? Eat the meat and spit out the bones, right? Take what you need and leave the rest. You use your discernment, okay? So what I like about alchemy is it has that standardized structure, and there's a lot of resources around it to help you make sense, and yeah, make sense, and it of what you're doing, what you're learning from your ancestors in a modern way. I hope that makes sense. Okay. All right. The next thing is, one of the main principles of alchemy, all right, is as above, so below. The alchemy is not the only place that you've heard this before, okay? But that is the essence of alchemy. Everything that happens inside is happening outside. The law of correspondence, the same thing that the coconut is already designed to do, it can do for you spiritually. It can do for your ancestors, right? Now, of course, we will trace, textbooks will trace the origin of alchemy, Kemet, from ancient Kemet. And then it traveled into ancient Greece, okay? I mean, when you look at the map, Greece is right at the top of Africa, right? So it's not a coincidence, right? You have ancient Kemet, which is that northern part of Africa, northeastern part of Africa. All right. So you have Greece right there. So it's not a coincidence that it traveled to Greece. All right, and then traveled to Arabia. Okay, so the land of the Arabic people, and then made its way to medieval Europe, which is where it kind of got its popularity of turning lead into gold, right? And like the little wizards wearing the little wizard hats, and they're inside of the little chemical labs, and they're like, pouring things into different beakers and stuff like that, right? So that's where you get that stereotypical how do I say this visual of what alchemy represents. Okay. And then, of course, it made its way to New Age spirituality and, of course, modern psychology. Okay, so that is a brief history of alchemy. By the way, if you have any questions, guys, write them in the comments, and then I'll be able to see them, and then I'll actually answer them. Okay, so don't be afraid to write them in the comments. Okay, so this is where we're gonna pause. Okay, I'm gonna talk about the law of correspondence, and we're going to introduce ourselves to the four elements, and I'm going to pause here because I don't want this video to be too long. I want it to be easy and digestible to where, oh, I get it, Kat. I don't want to be the old cat that's got you here sitting down for 2-3 hours and just spitting a whole bunch of stuff at you. I don't want to do that anymore. I've evolved past that. Okay. All right. So we talked about the law of correspondence. Okay. That is a huge, and you will see this throughout the later series, that the later videos, you will see how important the law of correspondence is in the process of transforming lead into gold. Okay. And we saw that with the example of the coconut milk. Now let's get into the four elements, okay? In alchemy, these are the symbols for the four elements in alchemy. A triangle, a right side up triangle, right? Typically it would be red or of some sort, right? That represents fire, okay? A right side up triangle. Oh, wait, I didn't mean to do that. I was actually gonna, sorry about that. No, I will not be editing that out. You will get to see that. Okay. All right. So with I have some notes on it and I don't want to ramble. Okay. Yeah. So with the right side up triangle, that is the energy of fire. That is the symbol of fire. You will see this not just in alchemy books, you will see this in any type of spiritual, metaphysical, holistic health, Chinese medicine, like any type of esoteric books and knowledge, you will see. Also, the triangle in any sacred geometry in the context, there it is, that's the word I was looking for, right? The sacred geometry symbol for fire is going to be a triangle. As a matter of fact, speaking of sacred geometry, when we look at the veve in Haitian Vodou, right, the veve are all sacred geometry. So anytime you see a right side up triangle inside of a veve, that represents the fire element of that energy. Oh, I should have had a veve that has it. If you look at the Ogu veves, okay, you will see triangles in the Ogu veve, okay. You will see triangles. Who else would have definitely Ogu? I'm trying to think of who else off the top of my head may have Dantal. You probably see some of them will have that, but Dantal is more water. But definitely Ogu, okay? Don't quote me on the other ones. I have to see. I can't remember all the veves at the top of my head, but for sure the Ogu veve, a few of them, because there's different aspects of Ogu, will have that triangle in them, that right side up triangle. So anytime, whether it's a veve, whether it's a sigil, no matter what type, if you see a right side up triangle, that represents fire, okay? So the element of fire in alchemy represents transformation, okay? All right? Represents life. Even when we greet the four directions, well, in our house, we start with east, right? And east represents that element of fire, and fire represents life, transformation, passion, right? I know that a fire can also be associated, the shadow side would be associated with anger. And it also represents divine masculinity, divine anger, because anger itself is not bad, right? It's the intention behind the anger, because sometimes anger is good. Sometimes it's okay to be angry enough to say, I never want to experience this again. Okay, that is divine anger. Divine anger will tell you, I never want to experience this again. I'm going to put my foot down. I'm going to put this boundary. I'm going to make sure I transform this because I'm fed up. I know more. I don't want this anymore. That is divine anger. Okay, so anger is not always destructive. So fire represents transformation, passion, purification. Think about baptism by fire, right? Think about, in ancient times, whenever somebody would get a wound, they would, what is it called? Cauterize? Or I don't know the English word for that, but they would put fire to the wound in order to clean the wound, in order to close the wound as well, right? Fire represents that courage, that divine action, that divine inspiration. Think about that Ogu energy, even Ogun, or that Shango energy, right? Okay. All right. Fire also in the body, okay, represents the heart. Okay. Think about the heartbeat, the electromagnetic field inside of your heart. All of that electricity is fire inside of the heart. Desire, willpower. Okay. So think about, why does this matter? Well, if we are turning lead into gold, right, and we are looking to experience, well, obviously transformation, right? If we're looking to experience more desire, more willpower, wouldn't it make sense to add some sort of fire element into our work? What do you think, right? If I'm looking to experience, if I'm looking to experience more of my passions, or to have more passion in my romantic life, or to experience more of my passions in my career, or to have more courage, that to overcome some fears, wouldn't a fire element in there kind of transform that lead into gold for you? You guys picking up what I'm putting down? Okay. All right. So I'm going over this so that when you are crafting your transformation, you can be intentional about the different elements that you add. Okay. Now, the shadow side of fire is going to be anger, right? Impatience, destruction. Okay. Now, there are some times where you need to bring some of that. If you know, right? Sometimes you need to destroy some things, right? Sometimes you need to be impatient about some things, because it's time for this to happen, type of thing, right? So shadow doesn't mean bad. It's the left hand and the right hand. Okay. All right. The next is going to be water. Okay, so water. Actually, I wish this is like a picture. If I had drawn it myself, the next one would have been water. Water is the opposite, right? So you go from east to west. The west is that water element. So water is going to be an upside down triangle. Now, in the Veve La Sirene Veve, you will see that upside down triangle. In Freda, Ezili Freda's Veve, you will see that upside down. Even in Oshun's Veve, you will see that upside down triangle, right? That is that feminine aspect, that water. Even, most of us are women here. We have an upside down triangle. Take a look at your cookies, right? Your cookie is an upside down triangle, is it not, right? And it's associated with all sorts of water. You got all sorts of water going on down there, right? Okay, beautiful sweet waters. Okay, all right. That think about that upside down triangle is going to represent water, and water is emotions, right? Water is intuition, life, nurturing, cleansing, clear, creation, right? The sacral chakra, the root, the sacral and the root, those bottom chakras. Okay. Feelings, your sensitivity. Okay. So again, if you're transforming lead into gold, right? Think about, what type of lead am I transforming, right? And how can the element of water transform this lead into gold? Maybe something needs to be washed away. Maybe we want to be able to feel more. Maybe we want to be more emotionally intelligent, or be more in control of our emotions. Maybe we want to create, right? And so maybe we want to multiply and hydrate, right? Whatever the case is. So that gives you whatever lead you're trying to transform into gold. I'm going to add an aspect of fire, I'm going to add an aspect of water, and so on and so forth. Okay. The next is going to be air. So air is going to be that right side up triangle, just like the fire, but it has a little little bar. So for me, excuse me, it has a little bar at the top. For me, the way I see it like a little campfire. I just see, I don't know why, but I just see a campfire because it still has that right side up triangle. So the basis is still fire, right? That right side up triangle, but it has that little line on it. And I think that's wood. That's like the fire. And then you got the smoke, right? So when I see the little campfire, I think of the smoke and I think of air. Okay. So that air element, air, when we face the four direction, represents transformation. Okay. Everything represents transformation at the end of the day. But air is more of your thoughts, right? It's more of that crown chakra area, right? More of, shifting your thoughts, shifting your perspective, creating new patterns, new belief systems, new understanding, wisdom, right? Communication. Think about the vocal cords and the air, because that your speech is the vibration of air, right? So that communication, clarity, right? Being able to, if you're feeling cloudy, when you're turning lead into gold, what is the lead? I'm feeling cloudy. So in order to turn it into gold to get clarity, I'm going to use an element of air. Okay. You guys picking up what I'm putting down? Air is perspective. Air is the mind, the breath, right? The nervous system, right? The entire nervous system. So the shadow, oh, I didn't talk about the shadow of the water. Um, we'll get into that. The shadow of air is going to be overthinking, all right? I talked about that. Now being cloudy, like having doubts, like I don't know what to do. Sometimes even stagnancy. Sometimes we don't do anything because we have no clarity, okay? Detachment, feeling detached, especially feeling detached from yourself, right? Mental confusion. I talked about that. So these are the leads, right? So if you're experiencing overthinking, detachment, mental confusion, there's an imbalance of air, right? And so when you are creating your work and when you're putting something together, you want to be intentional about it, adding an element of air. Does that make sense, everybody? Ooh, I kind of wish this was a live class. All right. Last but not least, we're going to go over Earth. Okay. So as you see, Earth is that upside down triangle. And notice that both of these are masculine, right? You have the fire. Okay. You have the fire aspect. And then you also have the air aspect. These are both masculine, okay? And then the water and the earth are feminine. And notice that they both have an upside down triangle, right? And then so the earth would be the opposite of air, okay? So and then of course the line is at the bottom. So I think of like a plant of some sort, like a root system, you know what I mean? Like a pot of plants. That's how I remember it. Okay. So the earth represents stability, right? Think of that black soil, that infinite potential, that structure, that embodiment, that 3D, that manifestation, right? Earth represents the bones, ashes to ashes. Think about the bones. Think about what Earth is even made of. Even sand. You look at sand. Sand is made up of bones of animals of the sea, right? Skin, right? The skin of the body. Okay, grounding, right? Root, that root chakra again. Okay, the shadow of Earth is stagnation, right? If you feel stagnant, if you feel like you lack control, right? Or your resistance to change, you just keep experiencing the same pattern over and over. There's a lack of earth balance happening, right? And so when you craft your working, you definitely want to add more earth element. Okay, so whether that's herbs, whether that's incense, whether that's actual dirt, bank dirt. Okay, I've moved some things with some bank dirt, with the desert dirt. When I went to Morocco, I still have some of my desert stuff, sand, right? It could actually be earth itself. It could be a plant, right? It could be flowers, right? Any type of earth element, all right? So these are, now let's go back to the water because I forgot to talk about the shadow parts of water. This is why I have to have my notes, okay? So when we're looking at the shadow of water, right? Shadow of water would be being not in control of your emotions, right? I remember, oh my gosh, I remember I was in the most toxic relationship in my early 30s. Oh man, when I tell you every time I got into a fight with this man, I would start crying and I would get mad because I would cry because I was mad. You know what I mean? Like I hate that. It's like I'm mad. I'm crying because I'm mad, but you think I'm crying because I'm weak. I hated that. It was so toxic and I had no control over it. And every time I would get mad at myself for crying, like, why did you cry? You made him think that you were weak. That is a sign of lack of balance in water, right? So if I wanted to turn that lead into gold, I would add an aspect of water into my working, okay? Don't get lost, cat. Avoidance, right? Avoiding doing something, avoiding having important conversations, right? And being dependent, especially being emotionally dependent. And this is not just for you, it's for your clients as well, right? A lot of your practitioners, you're helping the community. If you notice these things, the fire element, the water element, I'm sorry, the water element, we're talking about water, the water element may be able to help. Okay, so let's bring it all together. These are the sacred geometry symbols. Okay, they're all based on a triangle of some sort. Okay, of the four elements and how they can be incorporated into your work, into your alchemy. Okay, whether it's for yourself or for your clients. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna pause here. We're gonna stop here. The next how do I go back? Can I go back? Yes. Okay, so the next time, the part two is going to go over the three essentials of alchemy. Okay, we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about the three phases of alchemy. This is going to be an extensive conversation because I want to give real life examples. But today I wanted to make sure that it was an introduction, that it introduced you to the concept of alchemy and give you a new perspective on your workings, right? When you're crafting your workings, or even if you're being given a working, you now understand it on a deeper level. You now understand the process of transformation on a deeper level. And you may be able to amplify and tweak some things that you may have been doing just by chance, but now you're actually being intentional about it. Okay. All right, everybody, that's it. Please leave a comment. What was your biggest takeaway? What would you like to learn about alchemy? Because this is the first of many in the series. I would love your feedback. Share this video with someone that you know would find it valuable. And then I'll see you soon. All right, everybody. Talk soon. Bye.